It's where the military-industrial complex of France is. He is considered a very capable arms dealer. He is the one who, when he sits down with other foreign ministers, he is not going to discuss diplomatic issues. He says, you know, what are we going to sell you? Basically, there is this. It's like what happens at the Munich Security Conference. When I attended, I was struck that the first row is the defense ministers. This is the protocol. First row is the defense ministers. Second row is the foreign affairs ministers. Now I'm not saying that I wanted the first row, but I think it's very symbolic. I think it's very clear that now it's the armaments which are important, not diplomacy. So yes, imagine saying, I've been invited to, for example, the Antalya diplomacy in Turkey, and the Cypriot foreign minister, my colleague, is very offended that I'm going to go. Just to go. Not I told him, not I say, listen, I'm going to go there and say that Turkey should go over, take over Cyprus. Now, in that case, I would understand. But imagine, I told him, I'm going to go to Antalya. I'm going to talk about the Cypriot question and say, please, to Turkey in a firm voice, please do not change the reality on the ground to make the UN resolutions on Cyprus totally irrelevant. If you want a different arrangement for Cyprus, go through the process of changing the UN resolutions. Do not force the issue. But even something like that, just meeting, that's why I agree totally with you. The art of diplomacy and even is lost.
Because you told me just before we started that you also have an experience that some people told you not to meet Mr. Lavrov and Wang Yi of China during your tenure. Right. Can you maybe recall that story?
But I mean, can you believe it that from the American embassy, you would have pressure on your prime minister on the eve of going to Moscow or on the eve of going to Chengdu? Why, why is your foreign minister going to Lavrov? As if I was going to visit some kind of leper colony
And
of 200, 300 years ago.
and
And I would bring back infection to not just to Malta, but to Europe. But not even meeting.
and that was
And
the
obviously, yes.
ambassador of the United States to Malta who told you you should not go and
Yes, in
meet
that
Russia
case,
and China.
in that case, we didn't have, yes, in that case, we didn't have the ambassador. It was the chargé d'affaires. So she was the top diplomat. Yes, and she objected to me. Can you imagine? I mean, not even meeting. And I remember, I want to make this clear. I'm not saying that all the European diplomats behaved like that. No, I'm not saying that. But in this case, I'm being very specific. Yes, there was pressure. Do not even meet Lavrov. And why are you so friendly with Wang Yi? Imagine at one point there was the kind of words being said. That's why Malta has been grey listed by the FATF, because your foreign minister has this illusion of carrying out an independent foreign policy. You know, why does he want to meet, with these people? So even meeting, I mean, after all, during the Biden administration, the contacts between well, with China, they were continued, but the meetings with Russia were discontinued, and they expected the rest of the world to do the same. So what is diplomacy for?
And how does this pressure work? Because also on the EU level, in theory, in order to come up with a EU position, you need the okay of all the member states, right? So let's say the sanction packages. If like smaller states like Malta or Hungary object, what happens?
No,
Like,
no, no. Listen, first of all, the EU is like an old-fashioned train: first class, second class, and third class. First class, you'd have France and Germany. Second class, you would have Spain, you'll have Italy, and not even Poland, not even Poland. But possibly. And then the rest are in the third class. We travel third class, and we are expected simply to follow what the engine room has decided. This talk of being, of being equal, and we're all a happy family where everyone is treated the same. No, no. The reality is not like that.
But
And
what's the I mean, for Malta, I mean, I don't think you would think of exiting the EU, but what is the attraction of being part of a club that just gives you orders?
no, that's why I think it would be a tragedy for Malta if we lose our veto. I am totally against a federal Europe where everyone becomes in one United States of Europe. If nation states lose their say, the little say that they have now, then it will be lost. We will be a colony again. Instead of being run from London, we would be run from Brussels. So this idea of having co-decision making and that you are there to participate in the decisions that affect you. And here we're not talking simply now about diplomacy and good relations. And in the case of Malta, for example, where we're small islands, we need maritime connections, and we need, flights that we're not part of the continent. So anything that hits us, for example, putting a tax on aeroplanes so that we lessen the climate change effect of aviation, or putting charges on ships coming to Malta with merchandise. These are all things that affect us if we do not participate in them. And if you're simply told, behave, follow this, and my interest is more important than yours. So that's why I think in our case, it's very much, if the EU is going to have a future, it cannot be a one size fits all. I think those who want a one size fits all and those who want a United States of Europe, the EU, I think, will have huge problems containing all the different contradictions. And the process that has started of renationalizing decisions that had been taken over and transferred to Brussels, I think will continue even more.
Were you
It will be
shocked?
a tragedy for.
Were you shocked
Yes,
when
yes,
on the eve of or on in 2022, right when the special military operation started, and the war really blew up the way that we know it now, there was this decision by the EU Commission that now European airspace, EU airspace, would be closed to Russia. And airspace is, of course, not the prerogative of the EU, it's the prerogative of the member states. But that was announced and it was just accepted. Were you surprised that this
yes,
happened?
yes, yes, yes. But surprised, but at the same time,